Yes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us for the Shloshim Azkara to pay tribute to a dear and beloved, not only member of our community, but a dear and beloved friend to so many of us. It's hard to gather to say goodbye to Phil, to Shloshim Feivel ben Michael Halevi, because for most of us, for almost all of us, he might have been what we thought was the healthiest, strongest, most vibrant person we knew. He would live forever. Someone at an advanced age who biked 40 miles at a time like it was nothing, who was so independent and took care of himself, whom sadly maybe in some ways we took for granted would always be there, until that Shabbos morning when we learned he would not. And so I want to express our gratitude to his family, to the Lashers, the Zimmermans, for letting us host this. Maybe they consider it a kindness for their father or for them, but really it's for us. Because he was snatched from us, he was taken from us. And because of the timing, we didn't have an opportunity to pay tribute, to say goodbye. And for someone so outstanding, so extraordinary, he deserves our coming together in this moment. And while we learn from this week's Parsha that ordinarily miktzah shvacho b'fanav, we give only a fragment, we only say part of the praise of someone in front of them. He's no longer physically here, and so we can gather tonight to say the truth of what a special man, what a special Eved Hashem, what a special community member, what a special father and grandfather, what a special friend Phil was. Certainly tonight we think of Peggy, Aleh Shalom, comforted maybe only by the thought that they are reunited and together again. We're grateful that Cheryl and Lee are here. We're thinking of Rabbi Yehuda and Phil's siblings, Jack and Chaim and Gitti as well. So I was asked to share some Divrei Torah. One of the amazing things I think about Phil, I mentioned this before Ne'ilah, before the whole shul. I grew up on Sussex Road in Teaneck, New Jersey, across the street from the Zimmermans, literally across the street. I don't want to embarrass anyone because they think I'm older than Cheryl, but she was my babysitter growing up. She actually was my babysitter. Hopefully she won't share any stories tonight. So Phil Zimmerman literally knew me from my bris. He knew me from the day I was born. And when we came and our paths crossed here in Boca, he didn't say, oh, this kid Goldberg across the street, the mischievous youngster my daughter babysat for, who grew up in the Sweat Minyan, this local minyan that we had in Teaneck. But from the moment that technically or formally I was his rabbi, that's exactly how he treated me. That's what he called me. That's the respect that he showed me. And it meant the absolute world to me. I cherished it. So the family asked me to share some Divrei Torah tonight in his memory, which I'll try to weave into also, of course, thoughts and feelings about him. Hashem informs Noach in our parsha that Kates kol basar ba lefanai, which literally translates to the end of all flesh has come before me. And typically or traditionally, simply, it's understood to mean that Hashem had decided the time had come to eradicate all human beings from the world, save Noach and his family. Everyone else had proven unworthy. Kates kol basar, the end of all flesh has come before me. It's over. It's time to do a hard reboot, a hard reset on the world. But the Kli Yakar of Lundschitz has another interpretation, a unique approach. He says, perhaps the Torah is telling us this Kates kol basar refers not to Hashem was hard doing a reset on the world, but human mortality. Hashem was telling Noach that Yom HaMis, the day of death, the awareness of our limited time here on earth, confronting our own mortality and finality, it came before Hashem with a complaint. Kates kol basar, the end, Balafanai came to me, says Hashem. Mortality complained to God it was being ignored, that man was acting like they could live forever, that they were beyond reproach, that life would always go on, totally willfully ignorant of just how fragile, just how frail, just how final life is. Kates kol basar, the end of all man, balafanai came to me, says God, to complain that they're entirely ignoring me. And this is what led to the rampant sinfulness of that generation, was this misunderstanding or misconception, this illusion, this fantasy that we'd live forever, and therefore just pursue pleasure and fun, violate boundaries to take and experience things that are not ours, because people thought they would live forever. I'm sure we'll hear more about Phil's own background and upbringing, how he survived the worst atrocity in our history. He understood Kates Kol Basar. He understood mortality and frailty, understood the unpredictability of this world, and maybe that's part of what shaped his taking advantage of every moment. He may have retired from teaching, but he was so busy. He was incredibly active. There wasn't a lazy bone in his body. He was going and doing and volunteering and learning and playing and making a l'chaim on a wine or riding his bicycle or hanging out with friends. But he understood how unpredictable life and this world are, and therefore how precious every moment is. Live it to its fullest. Parsha begins, Eila told us, Noach ish tzaddik, these are the offspring, this is the legacy, the progeny of Noach. Noach was a righteous man, Noach was a big tzaddik. Torah introduces the progeny, the children of Noach, but doesn't proceed to list them. It's not till the next pasuk that we get the names of Noach's children. So what happened? It's like Torah has a little ADD. Eila told us Noach, these are the offspring of Noach. Oh, I just had another thought. Noach was a tzaddik. It got distracted from what it's supposed to present and report the children of Noach. So the commentators explain such a powerful insight. The person's greatest offspring is himself. Our own accomplishments and our own achievements. That as important as it is to invest in future generations and our children and grandchildren, which certainly Phil did, to work hard to raise them and educate them and prepare them and set them up for a life of success and achievement, but never to our own neglect. Never forfeiting who we are, what we could achieve, what will be our legacy. Se'ela told us Noach. The offspring of Noach, Noach. Noach's name, Noach's legacy. That's his greatest offspring. Yes, his children and his grandchildren and the continuity of all mankind. But his biggest legacy was Noah. There's a pejorative Yiddish word for someone who's not achieved or accomplished anything in life. In Yiddish, we refer to such a person as a lemech. A lemech. Lemech is, I don't want to say it, it's not a nice word for a shul, but a lemech is a loser. That's how you define, that's how you translate the word. I'm sorry, Mama. That's the Yiddish word lemech. That's what the word, no? Those who speak Yiddish, that's what it means. My mother just had a heart attack. I used that word in the shul. Speak to my babysitter. Could have both done a better job. It's interesting, where'd that word come from? Why do we refer to a person who didn't succeed by that word, however you translate it? So the word Lemech is actually the name of Noach's father. Lemech is the father of Noach. Rabbi Cheskel Weinfeld Shlita explains that Noach's father Lemech left no legacy. All you know about Lemech, who was he? Did he go to shul? Did he learn the Daf Yomi? Did he volunteer and do chesed? Who was Lemech? What did he do? What did he achieve? What did he accomplish? We only know one thing. He had a son Noach. That was it. And his son saved the world. And there's nothing wrong with being proud of your children, but not to the exclusion of creating a legacy for yourself. As far as we know, he had no other accomplishment, he had no other credit. And therefore, a lemech is someone who doesn't bother contributing or achieving, chooses instead to ride their children's coattails. A lemech is the person who's only always talking about the future generations, but is not working to create their own name. So Eila told us Noach ish tzaddik. The biggest offspring, the biggest progeny that Noach left was his reputation, his name, Noach ish tzaddik. While Phil certainly has an incredible legacy of a beautiful family, who are with us this evening and hopefully will watch later, and so much to be proud of, but as Shem Tov, his reputation, his sterling reputation, his name is his ultimate progeny, his legacy. Eila told us, Phil, tzaddik, ish tzaddik, b'derosov. He was a righteous man, a special man, a good man, and a kind man, and a generous man. I have an image of Phil, because we coordinated setting up so many Shiva homes in our community. Already, again, not a young man, schlepping, before he handed it off to Gersh, schlepping all the chairs and the stender and the aron and the Torah, not needing a committee, not needing other people to help or volunteers, carrying it all, loading in the car, taking it out of the car. But someone just said to me, literally as I was walking up here, that she remembers she only knew Phil from his coming to set up her Shiva home. She lost her father. But he didn't just set up the home, he set up the Avel by offering a kind word and by comforting them. He didn't just come to set up chairs and cover mirrors. He came to warm their heart and to offer companionship, to show them support. That's who he was. And you're here tonight because he left a beautiful family, but you're here tonight because he left an amazing reputation and such a beautiful name. Eila told us that is the ultimate legacy a person leaves, is their own reputation and is their own name. Torah relates that after hearing Hashem's instruction to build the ark, Noach complied. Noach did everything that Hashem commanded, so he did. It's a very peculiar, sort of clumsy formulation of the pasuk. He did everything Hashem commanded, so he did. What are those last two words? Kain asa, so he did. They seem superfluous. Once we're told he did everything Hashem commanded, obviously so he did. So the Ramban explains, he had to clarify that Noach obeyed Hashem's instructions to the minutest detail. He didn't just obey the general command to build the ark, but he was punctilious. He complied. He was detail-oriented. He was focused exactly with the specifications of what Hashem told him. Kain asa. He didn't just say, generally this is what Hashem wants. Good enough. But as Hashem commanded, he was detail-oriented. And I think we all knew Phil to be such a person. I don't think he was ever late to minyan in his life. He was the first one probably setting up the Daf Yomi Rabbi Sugarman, waiting for everyone else to arrive. Whatever the details of the particular mitzvah, whatever the detail of being punctual and punctilious in fulfilling it, that was him. Kain asa. He made a commitment to meet you. He was not there on time. He was there early. He said he would follow through. He would do something. His word was his bond. He was reliable, and he was dependable. It was his approach to Torah and mitzvahs, his approach to family and friendship. Kain asa. What he said he was going to do, he did, and he didn't just do it in the spirit of the idea. He did it in the details as well. Yisrael Meir Druk quotes his father of Mordechai Druk, the Drash Mordechai al Shalom, who gives a different interpretation. He says the word Kain asa is not superfluous. It means that Noach acted solely for the fulfillment of Hashem's wish. It wasn't because it was logical or because it made sense. He didn't just build an ark because it would save himself. It was a pretty smart thing to do. He did it because Hashem said so. He lived a life of lishma. He had an ongoing, meaningful, real relationship with Hashem. Kasher tzivo asa Elokim. He did it to faithfully serve Hashem. And one had a sense from Phil to his relationship with Hashem to see the way that he davened all year round, if he made it early enough to the early minyan, or early enough to see him there early, getting started. But Yamim Noraim, I think one of the images that we all have, many of us have etched very much in our mind. And I thought about it before Ne'ilah when I spoke about him, was whether it was upstairs at the Sheket Minyan, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, Psuke de Zimra that he started, slowly, methodically, concentrating, focused, or standing next to the Bima during Ne'ilah, helping, supporting the Chazan. Doesn't need help with his tunes and melodies, but just the energy that Phil brought. Kain asa, lishma, a relationship with Hashem. You see by the way a person davens. The way that a person treats davening and focuses on davening and cares about davening and concentrates on davening says so much about them. And I think that's part of the legacy that he leaves. Is the impression, the inspiration that he gave all of us in the way that he davened. Torah itself testifies, V'noach matzachein b'nei Hashem. Noach found favor in Hashem. He had chein, he had a sweetness and a gentility. He had a charm, a charisma. He had a chein. What is this chein that Noach had? His very name, Noach, is from those same letters, chein. And it's precious to Hashem. We ask Hashem, Sim Shalom chein v'chesed v'racham. Just covered in Siddur snippets. We ask Hashem to give all of us that chein. The question though is, what's chein? Are you born with it? Can you acquire it? What's chen? So the answer lies in a pasuk in Mishlei. The pasuk says, "V'la'anavim yitein chen." To the humble, Hashem gives chen. The Gemara Avodah Zarah tells us that Noah was exceedingly modest. He was humble even though Hashem, of all of humanity, Hashem tapped him to save the world. He remained humble even after, when he was responsible. Probably didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize, but he was responsible for saving the entire world, and it didn't go to his head. He remained exceedingly humble. His head didn't swell, never forgot who he was unchanged. Because that is the core of chen, is humility. That no matter who they are, how they live, no matter what anyone says about them, that they live with that sense of humility. Noach, like his name suggests, was calm, cool, and collected. Mishnah Novos teaches, Kol sheruach habrios nocha hemenu, ruach hamakom nocha hemenu. Because she'in ruach habrios nocha hemenu, in ruach hamakom nocha hemenu. Anyone from whom the spirit of fellow man finds pleasure, Hashem finds pleasure. And if people can't get along with you and don't like you, then Hashem's got problems with you. Nocha hemenu, Noach, chen, to be beloved to people, to have a chen and a charisma and a love and a warmth and an affection. It all comes and it all stems from a place of humility. Phil was one of the most low maintenance people that I knew. Low maintenance. First of all, from his summers, and I'd say goodbye and ask him where he was going, and he and Peggy were on that summer's camping trip through Europe until finally, I don't know what changed. After decades and decades,
my mom turned 70.
That was it. Okay. She turned 70, but they went glamping, maybe all the way inside a hotel. But they literally pitched tents and went camping through Europe in the summers. Just low maintenance. Just needed wine. But other than that, nothing special. But not just low maintenance in gashmis, in terms of materialism and physical things. Low maintenance from the community in terms of attention. After Peggy passed away, and I spoke to Phil and I said, what can we do? Shabbos meals, we can make sure that you're always invited. And meals during the week. And he looked at me like I landed from another planet. Someone's going to cook for me? Who can I cook for? Who needs a meal from me? He's the most independent person, cooking his own meals till the end, taking care of himself, and there to help and take care of others, but not needing anyone to take care of him. He was so low maintenance. He was the quintessential mensch. He had such dignity and class and consistency. His attendance at the Daf Yomi, his love and commitment to Talmud Torah. There's so much more on and on that we can share, but I want to end calling up Cheryl by asking Phil for mechila. Not only as I spoke before Ne'ilah, for not having the chance to say goodbye because I didn't take advantage of that moment. I thought there'd be another chance. But if we didn't appreciate it, if we took him for granted, if we thought he'd live forever, to thank him now for his friendship and his love, for all he did for our community, our shul, for us, I personally thank him, having known him my whole life, for that special relationship that we shared, and certainly he will sorely be missed by us all. Come share a few words.
Thank you, everyone, for coming here today to honor my father. I'm going to read something that a good friend of mine wrote to me after my father's funeral. So it's not my writing. He wrote, "Dear Cheryl, one generally doesn't rank funerals, yet yesterday's farewell to your remarkable father truly was one of the most outstanding in that it reflected the essence of Mr. Zimmerman, Zifrona Livracha, and the holy life he lived. He was once in a lifetime individual who touched people of all ages, not only because of his remarkable life experiences, but also through his extraordinary ability to face life's many roller coaster moments and transform them into strength, perseverance, and wisdom. His story was, above all, one of the deep faith in Hashem and unwavering belief that he was being guided wherever life took him. I had last spent meaningful time with your dad, Zifrona Livracha, when we toured together with Lee, the southern epicenter of the tragedy of October 7th. I watched as he stood at each site in thoughtful reflection, firm, stoic, and then joining in Hebrew song with a group at the Nova Festival Memorial. He absorbed every detail with quiet dignity and depth. A few days after Lee returned home, I encountered your father, parentheses, with my ice cream in hand, again in Jerusalem. After recovering from my surprise that he had driven in from your apartment, we spoke briefly. When I asked for his impressions of the South, expecting a long response, given his years of perspective, he instead offered a short but powerful statement. It made clear the vital importance of Israel in our lives and in Yiddishkeit. We must never take it for granted. Simple words, yet profoundly impactful. As you know, and as I remember from my many attempts at French with him, your father was a proud Frenchman who found joy and meaning in the daily ritual of fine wine. Yet for him, wine was never merely about taste or culture. It was about savoring life itself. How fitting that this passion so beautifully echoed the role of wine in the Jewish tradition. Wine for our people is a vessel of holiness, memory, and joy. Each week we sanctify Shabbos with Kiddush. On Pesach, 4 cups symbolizes redemption and freedom. At Havdalah, wine marks the transition from sacred to ordinary. At a Brit Milah, it welcomes a child into the covenant. At a Siyum, it elevates Torah study into celebration. And at a wedding, it seals the covenant of love and faith between two souls. Seen through this lens, your father's appreciation for wine was truly a celebration of life's fullness. Like wine, he brought richness, depth, and spirit to every moment. He sanctified the ordinary, elevated the extraordinary, and left those around him inspired and uplifted. May his memory forever be a blessing. May the cup of his life, full, vibrant, and sanctified, continue to inspire all who knew and loved him. And may you, Lee, and the entire family always find joy in raising your own cups at future moments of blessing, celebration, and peace. So with that in mind, at the end of all these speeches, we are going to invite everybody for a dessert ceremony, and of course there will be wine included.
I believe that on both a simple and profound level, people generally fall into 2 categories. Those who are glass half full people and those who are glass half empty people. I try to surround myself with glass half full people. But the thing is, my father-in-law, Philip Zimmerman, of blessed memory, broke the mold, and he always saw the glass as overflowing. You probably know that Philip was a hidden child in France during the Shoah. He lived in the French countryside with a Catholic family and was an altar boy at the local church. He hid for over 4 years. Yet he saw his childhood as a pleasant one. He told me over and over, I was not a survivor. I had a great childhood. And he had such hakarat tov for the family that saved him that he even took my mother-in-law, Peggy, of blessed memory, to meet them on their honeymoon. Philip liked to joke when he was asked to daven for the Amid, which nusach do you want, Ashkenaz, Sfard, or Latin Mass? Let me just share 2 stories with you. How Philip and Peggy got to Boca in the first place, and our last Yom HaOtzma together, which brought him much happiness. My father, Howard Lasher, of blessed memory, bought an apartment in Boca in 1980 on a whim. He was attending a conference for stockbrokers in Fort Lauderdale, and someone said you should go check out Boca. It's such a nice place. So my father did, and on the spot, he bought a condo in Whitehall on Camino Real. Cheryl and I would go from time to time, and around 1993, after years of making Pesach and Teaneck on Sussex Road, at their home, Peggy and Philip said, how about we go to Florida? but not to a program. Let's kasher your father's condo and stay there. So I called Rabbi Brander and asked how far we were from BRS, and he said pretty far. But we should call Rabbi Grabowski at the Young Israel, as they were much closer to us. We did, and Rabbi Grabowski was happy to help. He drove to see the exact distance, which was around 2.2 miles. He even got us matzah that year, and that started around 5 or 6 years straight of going to Boca. And Philip and Peggy loved it. And in true Philip style, he never missed a minute. In the heat, with no water, we would walk to the Young Israel, back and forth. Even when we would come back sweaty, he would be ready to walk back for mincha a few hours later. Always with a smile and feeling blessed that he could just go to shul. My father sold his condo around 2002, and Philip and Peggy bought their house in Captiva right after. Now the second story. This past Yom HaAtzmaut, Philip and I were still in Israel after going for Pesach with the family. We were invited to a close friend of mine, Amos Motis, who lives in Elkanah. He had his family and extended family over, including his children, grandchildren, mother, in-laws, cousins, and a nephew was only recently, a few months before, killed in action in Gaza. It was a very emotional, meaningful, and enjoyable barbecue. And then the older generation started telling their stories. Amos's mother's family was from Poland. Her parents only survived because they were unable to have children, and a rabbi told them to go to Palestine, because since it is the Holy Land, maybe she could have a child there. And she did, and this was Amos's mother. Most of the rest of her family was killed by the Nazis. Amos's father-in-law is from Yemen. He came to Israel as a little boy by literally walking and with donkeys. He remembers how hard it was and how blessed they felt to arrive, even while living in a very poor neighborhood. And Philip told his story of being a hidden child in France. These three family patriarchs looked around and saw their children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and younger generations. They saw Israeli flags, and they celebrated Yom HaAtzmaut, sang songs, and knew what was being heroically done by so many to defend and support the state of Israel. And despite all the challenges, they felt so proud to be part of Am Yisrael. I think these three individual stories are really a story of the Jewish people. Philip thanked me so much for taking him and said it was the best and most authentic Yom HaAtzmaut he ever experienced. It gave him hope. Rabbi Sachs says of hope, optimism and hope are not the same. Optimism is the belief that the world is changing for better. Hope is the belief that together we can make the world better. Optimism is a passive virtue, hope an active one. It needs no courage to be an optimist, but it takes a great deal of courage to hope. The Hebrew Bible is not an optimistic book. It is, however, one of the great books of hope. Philip Zimmerman lived every day as a life of action and hope, and he made the world a truly better place. May his memory be a blessing. Now I'd like to call on Philip's nephew, Yitzchak, to say it.
I miss my Uncle Philip's smile, and everybody knows what smile I'm talking about. The smile that lit up the room. It was truly his Kesem Malchus, as Yaakov Avinu blessed Yehuda with those words. V'labein shnayim mecholov. Kingship comes with the idea of smiling at the world so that the world will smile back at you. He lit up a room with his warmth, whereas the Balatanya famously said, a little light dispels much darkness. As Lee touched upon, the beginning lives of my uncle, my father, and his brother, let's just say, started off, it was kind of dark. My uncle and his brothers were born in Antwerp at the end years of the Depression. There's stories of my grandparents hiding in movie theaters because it only cost a nickel and they can get heat. Otherwise they would have been freezing. They grew up as Catholics, my father and Uncle Philip, together during the Holocaust. My other uncle was hidden in a monastery for 5 years. They dealt with great anti-Semitism in Grenoble, where they were after the war until 1953. Terrible, terrible anti-Semitism, actually. Most of the Jews of Grenoble, 95% of the Jews of Grenoble, married out. Did not marry Jews. But the Zimmerman boys, despite not really having yeshiva, they spent a couple of months in Aix-les-Bains, but there was truly no yeshiva. Despite that, they all had their bar mitzvah in Grenoble. They all said a shtetl in French, because that was their language. They didn't speak English. They spoke French. And when they came to America in 1953, my uncle was already 18 years old. So only my father, who was about 4 years younger than, who is 4 years younger than him, was the only one who truly had an opportunity to go to Targadas to learn. None of them spoke English when they came here. They were all greeners. But nonetheless, despite this beginning, the darkness that started off all their lives, my Uncle Philip and his brothers shined bright. By the late 1950s, early 1960s, between the three brothers, 75% of the classes in Breuers, both the Lamudei Kodesh and the Lamudei Chol, were covered famously by the three brothers. I worked in Yeshiva of Flatbush for about 10 years. I heard a lot of stories about the famous, the three brothers. They covered, within 10 years of coming, they were covering already 75% of the classes in Breuers. And none of the three ever left teaching. My Uncle Philip became an assistant principal. My father and his other brother became college professors, constantly giving of themselves. My uncle and his brothers were truly Rabbeim. That's the way they saw themselves, giving of themselves, because what else is a Rav? My uncle, as we all know, in many ways was a pioneer. And to the family, certainly. When the family moved downtown from Washington Heights to Borough Park, my uncle Philip and my tante Peggy, they moved across the river to Teaneck. And eventually, of course, they came to Boca Raton, only to be followed by another section of the Zimmermans many, many years later, after Uncle Philip and tante Peggy laid the way. And as was always pointed out, wherever he went, he contributed mightily to the growth of Jewish life. The Daf Yomi in Teaneck, the Daf Yomi here with Rabbi Sugarman, the Jewish world today, which we kind of take for granted, was in reality, after World War II, built on the shoulders of men like my Uncle Philip. My uncle, and to understand this, the Zimmermans define, in many ways, the wandering Jew in Golos. My Uncle Philip, Shraga Feivel, his namesake, Shraga Feivel ben Pinchas Elimelech Halevi, is buried in Grossvedain in Romania. Pinchas Elimelech, our great-great-grandfather, is buried on Har HaZeisim in Yerushalayim. How he got there, nobody has a clue in the 1800s. My Zaida went from Romania, and my Bobby, they both came to Antwerp, and we're here, etc. But in each one of the cases, the family represents the idea of the wandering Jew, uncovering the nitzitzis, the sparks from the kalipas, the shell, which is, of course, the avodah. My uncle certainly accomplished that avodah. His entire life was exposing the sparks from the shells of this world. May his memory be a true blessing to all of us. And a melitz yoshe for the ganze mishpacha and for all of Klal Yisrael.
So thank you everyone for coming. As Cheryl mentioned, you're invited to the back to make brachas in his memory, to make a l'chaim, a toast in his memory. Please God, we should gather only for simchas. Thank you for coming. Wow, story's unbelievable. I don't know how you got here.